All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 2 of Ole Miss After Dark. I'm joined once again by my good buddy Hitch. We've got a variety of topics ready for y'all today. The College World Series has been set since the last time we talked. You got 4 ACC and 4 SEC teams battling it out. Only 2 conferences going to Omaha. Ole Miss and the FPI. I know this came out a couple weeks ago. Me and Hitch actually meant to do this on our last show and kind of went off the rails a little bit there, and we ended up talking for 30-something minutes about college baseball when we didn't intend
Doesn't
to.
sound like us.
So we'll circle back around and hit that for a little bit, and then the main part of the show we want to we went through all 16 schedules of SEC teams for this coming up here to see how many SEC teams actually have a shot to make the 12-team college football playoff. So we'll get into that. And we're going to end the show with the segment that we're going to start doing every single time that we get together here. And it's just off the rails because apparently that's what me and Hitch do. We go off the rails from time to time, talk about some random stuff. So we're going to try to save that for the end of the show. That way we don't get derailed so early on at the start of the show. So that's the plan. We'll see if we can actually stick to it this time or not. But Hitch, first of all, appreciate you joining me once again. How's everything going on your side? I heard that there was a criminal on the loose that has since been detained, so to speak.
Apprehended. Yeah, man. Just general annoyance at life.
Yeah.
My station in life, where I should be, where I'm not. Criminals running wild in Old Oaks.
Yeah.
It could be better, but we're here. And
yeah.
We're going to talk about some Ole Miss stuff. Let's go.
All right. Well, before we get into the Ole Miss stuff, the College World Series has since been set. Like I mentioned, 4 ACC, 4 SEC teams. First time since they've expanded past only 2 teams making it to the College World Series that it will only be represented by 2 conferences. On one side of the bracket, we've got Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida State, and Virginia. And on the other side, you have Texas A&M, Florida, Kentucky, North Carolina State. Did I get that right?
Bingo. Got it. Nailed it.
Do you have some start times, dates, stuff like that for when it's
getting? Yeah, so these will be Eastern. So the 14th, which I guess was that Friday. I guess it starts on Friday. Yeah. So the 14th, you're going to have the left side of the bracket, or bracket 1 is what they call it, North Carolina, Virginia at 2 Eastern, and then Tennessee, Florida State at 7 Eastern. Starting Saturday, you got Kentucky, NC State. It's going to be the same times, 2 Eastern, A&M in Florida, 7 Eastern. So it's going to be some good games, some good matchups. I love that North Carolina, Virginia matchup.
It's going to be fun.
The Texas A&M Florida matchup. I didn't even look at Tennessee, Florida State. They may score 100 runs in that tournament, in that series.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Here, Jenny, she won't leave me alone. Say, hey, Jenny. Yeah.
What's
up?
You
want to go back out and play with your car while I get done with this?
Yeah.
Uncle Hitch said hey.
Bye, Jenny.
All right, bud. All right. Yes. So
gotta have.
What were you saying with Florida State there?
Yeah. I forgot as we were talking about the matchups before we hopped on. I didn't even hit me that Tennessee and Florida State were playing each other, and I mean they may score 100 runs in that series.
Yeah.
Both of those teams.
And if you remember,
shit out of it.
And if you remember, Link Jarrett, who's the coach for Florida State right now, he was the coach of Notre Dame when they went to Knoxville in 2022. The year Ole Miss won it and knocked off the evil empire of the Tennessee Volunteers, where they were the most hated team in the country that year. I think it was the only time that I can remember in my entire life where literally the entire nation outside of the state of Tennessee came together to support Notre Dame of all schools. You don't see that a whole lot, especially down here. Notre Dame's not a very popular team, but we were all rooting for them back there in 2022. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Yeah.
Yeah. So just real quick, so we don't spend too much time on it. Just give me who's going to win. Who wins the thing? And we can. I can talk about it later, like at another show or something. But just looking at the bracket with no games being played, who wins?
And you're going to hate it. Like, you're going to hate it more than anything. Dude, I
Oh my
love
God! I already know you're
Kentucky.
going to say Kentucky.
I
You're going to say
love
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Look, they are on the SEC heavy side of the bracket, right? They
Hmm.
really dominated the SEC this year. Obviously, Tennessee being the other one. So if they can do it one more time,
Yeah,
get to the championship game. Now you're only 2 wins away. Look, I love the
I
way they
think.
play the game. I know it's frustrating, but I do. I really like Kentucky. So gun to my head, if I had to pick somebody, I'm going Kentucky, beating Tennessee 2 out of 3 and really the ballpark in Omaha sets up really well for Kentucky as well. It's a really spacious ballpark. Now Tennessee still has plenty of guys that can hit it over the
Oh yeah.
fence and can drive it out of there, but it's not going to be as hitter friendly as it is in Knoxville, where they've been playing the majority of their games. So give me the team that's scrappy and it's just going to frustrate the hell out of you in that stadium. So give me Big Blue Nation here.
Yeah, no, I've said it before. You know my disdain for Kentucky's brand of baseball, but I do respect
Yeah,
it. Right, it is uh, it is a very legitimate way to play the game and be successful, as they have proven. I'm
yeah,
going with Florida. I'm going with who I think the best player in the country is. I'm going with his team to win. They just
yeah.
feel magical this
They
year.
do.
Like, I mean, they just keep winning. Oh, just like the other night in that game, you and I were texting back and forth, and it was like I said, with all of this stuff going on, what Florida's still going to win this game.
Yeah.
And they came out and won the game and made it to Omaha. They've been here.
Mm-hmm.
LSU beat them last year in the championship game.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
they've got some leadership, some seniors there that are gonna have been here before. And man, Caglione is an incredible
Incredible.
athlete. And so I'm just gonna take just eyeing it here. I like Florida over Texas A&M getting the Braden Montgomery injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I looked at this bracket, I would say this is the lighter side of the bracket. So I think Florida has a shot to get, to the championship series. So I'm going to go with Florida.
Okay, and I'm just kind of sitting here thinking out loud. We've got to move on from college baseball.
Yes.
Maybe me and Hitch will get together like Thursday afternoon or something like that, and maybe we'll give y'all a big College World Series preview and talk a little bit Ole Miss baseball as well with the big off season coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But just last point on Florida because I do like Florida as well. They have all the talent in the world. It's not so indifferent from Ole Miss's championship. Ole Miss was ranked #1 in the country. We had a really bad 4-ish weeks. And then we were the best team in the country again after that, right? And that's kind of what's happened with Florida. They were in the top 5 all year, have all the talent in the world. You got Caglione and Shelton and all those guys. They had a really bad stretch in the SEC, obviously the best conference in the entire country. And now they've turned it on at the right time and they're playing their best baseball. So it doesn't feel that different from the 2022 Ole Miss team. Really good to start, really terrible middle. And now they're looking like one of, if not the best teams in the country again at the right time. I could absolutely see Florida coming away with this one here.
Yeah, let's do that later this week, maybe up there. That's a good idea because too, I could talk about this forever, but there have been some names that we haven't necessarily said here on the show that have jumped in the transfer portal for the Rebels that may be kind of surprising for people. So we can put something together. I think probably another second show this week. That'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. We did okay, Hitch. Only 9 minutes there on college baseball.
Some of that was me complaining about my station in life too. So I would say you probably take 2 more minutes off of that. I bet 7 minutes.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, that's not too bad. We'll go ahead and move on though. Talking about the FPI, I've got the graph up here. I'll go ahead and pop up for the people that are watching here on YouTube. They came out with the top 25 on June the 3rd. This according to ESPN FPI. Felt really disrespectful for the Rebels here, all the way down at 16 behind Clemson, Texas A&M, LSU, Michigan, who lost an absolute ton. Same with Florida State. I feel like Ole Miss should be a consensus top at the very least 17, right? I mean, there's no reason we should be outside of the top 10 with who we've got coming back, the experience that we have, plus the guys we've plucked out of the transfer portal. One thing Lane Kiffin did a really good job of last year was using the transfer portal and finding guys that fit into his culture, his program, and they really bought in, and they ran it all the way to an 11-2 season by the time it was all said and done. Maybe he's figured something out here, and he's gone even to a higher level. He shopped in different aisles this offseason in transfer portal when you have guys like Walter Nolan, Juice Wells, guys like that coming in. I think this is going to be a really, really good team. Just seems really disrespectful to be down at 16 in the FPI going into the year.
Yeah, I don't know. This is where I kind of hate rankings and who's the best and where do you fall, because it's gotten so much harder in my mind. We know what caliber of players are coming in to the Ole Miss football team from the transfer portal. What we don't know necessarily is how those players mesh with each other, how they fit into the scheme, how they all of these other unknowns. We trust that the coaches do their vetting and they get the right guys in. But as we know, there have been some guys been here and guys go other places that have been trouble and not worth the risk. And so I kind of say all of that to say I don't necessarily see it as disrespect to not be in the top 10 or the top 5. I see it as we don't know what we're getting. They brought in so many kids from the transfer portal. We know what they should be, right? A top 5 team in the country. But if those kids don't gel and don't mesh, they might not be a top 25 team in the country. So let's split the difference and put them in the middle, right? Now, I think that what we will see, you brought up a good point, as Lane has done a very good job of bringing kids in that fit into his scheme and that come in and can be playmakers and can help us out immediately on the field. I think that what you'll start to see is that piece being added to a team's ranking or a coach's resume, how well that they use the portal. And so let's say in 3 more years, Lane continues to be successful in the portal. For 5 years running, he's been very successful in the portal. Then I think the writers and the people that start voting on this stuff and figuring this stuff out could start looking at it and say, Lane's got a pretty good track record of hitting the portal, so we're going to give his team a bump this year because we kind of know what we're getting a little bit more than else because we've seen what he's done in the portal. And so if this were 2 or 3 years in the future now, people are starting to take that in consideration. We might be, top 5. I don't know, but to me, it's people saying we know what to expect, but we don't necessarily know what we're getting yet.
Yeah, and that's totally fair because we have no idea what we're getting yet. We haven't seen a lot of these guys in an Ole Miss uniform yet. I think one of the really interesting things with a roster that's built on the transfer portal, like Ole Miss's is how do you deal with adversity, right? I mean, when you're playing in this league, just look at let's see what week that is. That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at week 6, October the 5th. We travel to South Carolina. Looking on paper, we should be 11.5, 12-point favorite, something like that. But going to Columbia, South Carolina is an incredibly difficult place to play. Look back to, what was it, 08, 09, whatever it was, when we played them on a Thursday night in that stadium.
It was, I can tell you, it was the year before Blake and I got married. It was 08. It was 08 because, I remember watching that game and we were like top 5 in the country at that, like number 4 maybe. Number 4. And I remember watching us get our brains beat in.
Yeah, Bradley Sowell had a long night, long night. Trying to think of that cat's name, that defensive end, Eric something. I can't remember his last name.
Walls, Eric Walls.
No, it was not Eric Walls. No, that's not it. But to my point, how do you respond if you drop a game you're not supposed to? If we end up going undefeated up to that point, we'll be 5-1. But then you look and you've got a trip to LSU. You come home to play Oklahoma. You go to Fayetteville after that. You welcome Georgia. Just how do you respond to adversity if you do drop one that you're not expecting to drop? That's the key to this team. Can they stay focused? Because things are going to happen in this league. We're here in just a little bit. We're going to talk about kind of projecting records for each team in the SEC, going through schedule, stuff like that. And there's a 0% chance that we're right on all of these records. But what I found interesting about it, because you're going to drop some that you're not expecting, but what I found interesting in doing this exercise is how many people do have a chance to make the college football playoff with one thing or another going their way. And maybe let's go ahead and dive into that now. How many teams get into the college football playoff? I will go ahead and read off the records for all 16 teams that I came up with, Hitch, and just kind of tell me what you think about that. Finishing first, I've got Georgia. I've got them going 12-0, 8-0 in the SEC, obviously. They will match up. I didn't dive into tiebreakers or anything here, so I don't know who would end up getting the tiebreaker. But I've got Ole Miss and Texas tying for second place, both losing to Georgia, by the way. 11-1, 7-1. That's Ole Miss at 2, Texas at 3, at 11-1. And this is where it really gets interesting. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 teams finishing 10-2 and 6-2 in the SEC here. Starting off with Alabama, then LSU, Missouri, and Texas A&M. I was really surprised when I started looking at the schedules. I think Texas A&M really got a break with their schedule this year. They're a team that's really talented. They had several people leaving the transfer portal, but it was a loaded roster to begin with. They've got Mike Elko starting year 1 there. So I think they're going to get a little bit of a bump with the new head coach as well, with all of that talent. I think A&M, for all the jokes that we like to make about them and them coming up short with all the talent they have, I think they really have a chance to make a little bit of noise this year.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think the first game on their schedule, Notre Dame.
Got to win it.
Got to win that one. If they get past Notre Dame, and then in week 3 they go to the Swamp. If they can get past Notre Dame, and then I'll be completely honest. We got to get Chad back in here on football because I'm awful at this stuff. We can talk about baseball and basketball all day, but when it gets down to like football, X's and O's, like I didn't play, so it's hard for me to comprehend. But I test, right? If I'm looking back from last year and the things that have gone on in the season, I mean, Florida's going to be better than they were last year. You've got to think. And
you think so?
Yeah, but even if they're not, that's where I was going with it. You've got to think they're probably. The way I look at college football is every team is better than they were last year, except for that top tier, right? I mean, that's the goal. You have to be trying to get better, right? Well, yeah, sure. But, I mean, they're smart.
But, that's true.
So even if Florida's not good, I mean, the Swamp isn't an easy place to go play. And so I think if they get past Notre Dame, get past Florida in week 3, I mean, then it does kind of line up. You get Arkansas at home. You get a tough Missouri team at home. You go, to Mississippi State.
Historical.
Right. Right. You get LSU at home. You get Texas at home. You go to Auburn.
Yeah.
Right. Man,
to South Carolina.
I hate it so much. But, yeah, I think that you're right. I mean, I don't know that Texas A&M wins 10 games. But I think probably I think that there will be a game, probably that South Carolina game at South Carolina, where people are talking about Texas A&M being whatever they are at the time, 7-0 at the time. I didn't even do the math, but whatever they are at the time. And if they get South Carolina on the road, then they're going to start talking into the college football playoff championship scenario. And they go to South Carolina and they get beat, probably is what happens.
Yeah, so the 3 big games for Texas A&M that I have is that opening game against Notre Dame, like you mentioned. and then at South Carolina and at Auburn. The Arkansas game, by the way, said it was at A&M. That's in Arlington. I think it's the last year they're playing it in Arlington. It's going to campus starting next year. But they've got to avoid traps. Again, if they don't get the Notre Dame game, I don't think any of this matters. I think at South Carolina and at Auburn are the two games. And look, they're better than those two teams. They have more talent. They should win, will probably be favored. But if they do that, I mean, I've got them losing a home game to LSU. I think LSU is going to be pretty good this year. And then losing the game to Texas. That's how I got them to 10-2. But I don't think anything else is really that much of a stretch on their schedule. So I thought their schedule was really interesting. Thought it set up really well.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I was making. Is it feels like they got everybody they wanted to play at home, right? Because you got to play X amount of teams in the SEC. Not only did they not get Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee or Ole Miss or any of these other teams, but also the teams that they did get, LSU, Missouri, right? They're at home.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
If they are going on the road, if they're going on the road, they're playing probably a lesser opponent that they probably should win the game. But I'll believe it when I see it with them. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So but anyway, that's my group of 10-2 teams coming in at number 8. I've got Tennessee going 9-3, 5-3 in the SEC. And then I've got a couple 7-5 teams, Auburn and Kentucky. Thought Auburn's schedule set up pretty well for them. I've got them losing at home to Oklahoma, at Georgia, at Missouri, at home against Texas A&M, and at Alabama. And outside of that, there's really not a lot of crazy wins. I got them beating Arkansas at home. Going on the road and beating Kentucky, that's definitely a coin flip game. That's probably the biggest game for them to determine whether they're going to be a 6-6 or a 7-5 type team. Like I said, I got Kentucky at 7-5. I was kind of surprised at myself. I got Mississippi State to 2-6 in the SEC. Them and Oklahoma coming in at 11-12, both at 6-6 with a 2-6 conference record. Dude, the SEC did not do Oklahoma any favors with their first year here. They get their first SEC games at home, but against Tennessee, and then they turn around the very next week and they go to Auburn. Auburn's going to be an improved team. They're not a great team by any stretch, but I think that's going to be their welcome to the SEC moment where, all right, we just got done with, a top half team in Tennessee at home, and now we get to go on the road against a middle of the league team in Auburn to get right. And you never get right in the SEC with those kind of games. Like it's so weird when you're having to go back to back and then travel to a place like Auburn. I think that's where they find out what this league's all about, and they drop that game. Then they've got an open date, and I've got them losing to Texas and Dallas, and then beating South Carolina, and then losing to Ole Miss before beating Maine, and then just a absolute murderer's row at the end of the year. At Missouri, open date, Alabama at home, at LSU. I mean, good luck, guys.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Did Dylan Gabriel transfer? Or did he stay?
Yeah, he's at no, he's at Oregon now.
Okay.
They've got what's his name? That freshman. Or he was a freshman last year. I can't remember his dang name though. But anyway, after Oklahoma at 12, I got South Carolina finishing 13th at 4-8 and 1-7 in the SEC. If I had to guess, I would say I've got them beating Vanderbilt. Yep. Vanderbilt is their lone SEC win. And then this was the crazy part. To wrap up the SEC, 14, 15, 16, I have 3 teams with a 3-9 record going 0-8 in the SEC. Arkansas, Florida, and Vanderbilt. I'm not a Graham Mertz believer. If that's going to be their quarterback, then they're really going to have a tough time. They have Texas A&M at home. Then the very next week have to travel to Starkville. That's not going to be very easy. And then they go to Tennessee, Kentucky at home. Georgia in Jacksonville, at Texas, LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, and then at Florida State. And all of that's with opening with Miami in week 1 for Florida as well.
Yeah,
As
well, and
difficult
so
of a schedule as I've ever seen.
So with that one, right? It's kind of like was it Oklahoma you were talking about that plays at home first weekend and then turn around and goes to Auburn. And that game, that Auburn game for Oklahoma, kind of felt like what you were saying about Florida. Is they're at home the first game against Missouri, and then the next game they have to turn around and go to State or to Starkville.
Yeah, well,
right?
It's home against Texas A&M and then at Starkville.
Okay. Okay. And then to Starkville, but it's like, like you said, those games don't pick you up. Those games aren't get right games. Those games are, if you ain't careful, punch you in the mouth games. I mean, right? You may go to Auburn and Hugh Freeze may put up 60, or you may go down to Starkville and not score but 3 points. And so I think those games,
it's different.
It just goes to show that it really doesn't matter when you play people. I mean, it does, but there's no
in a sense it doesn't.
But the games in the beginning, right? You hear in baseball, right? The at bats in April are just as important as the at bats in November. And it's hard to actualize that. It's hard to say, well, no, they're really not. But when you look at schedules like this, you say, man, game 3 is just as important as game 9. And game 1 is just as important as game 5. And it's really hard to see anybody outside of the top elite teams, getting on any kind of role in the SEC, because every single week you look and they have to go on the road to South Carolina or on the road to the Swamp or anywhere that teams may be down, but they're going, they're going to be good, or it's going to be hard to win in that environment.
Yeah. Jenny, that's great stuff. All right. So all in all, I ended up with, we know you changed clothes. I see that. I ended up with 1 through 7 finishing at least 10-2, and then the 8th team, Tennessee, going 9-3. I was pretty shocked when I went through everything, and that's what I ended up with, having half of the SEC winning at least 9 games.
Yeah, I don't. To me, that seems crazy. But
it's not going to happen that way. I know people are going to drop games, but
no, I think I think by us discussing Texas A&M's schedule, that shows that look, we know that everything has to go pretty much right for Texas A&M to go 10-2. We get that. We talked about all the pitfalls and stuff, but it's the same thing for an Oklahoma team who you had at 6-6, and I think I had maybe 1 game less than that. I wrote it down, but I can't remember. But that schedule, if Oklahoma comes out, that quarterback plays well. Oklahoma's a well-coached team. They have a lot of talent. If they come out and run off 2 or 3 straight, their schedule then sets up to be very difficult. And if they go in and start beating these teams, and they're going to jump, and
they are.
So, I mean, it's a blessing and it's a curse, right? It's a blessing or it's a curse that you get beat up all year long facing these tough SEC teams. But if you do what you need to do, it's actually a big blessing, because it gives you the ammunition needed for the college football playoff, board to say, hey, that team deserves to be here because of what they went through. And that's probably how you'll get a 9-3 or a 10-2 team into the college football playoff.
Yeah. I mean, really, to kind of circle back to baseball for just a second, it's kind of like Ole Miss baseball this past year. We had the number 2 strength of schedule basically the entire year. And as long as we stayed above 500, it sounds like they were going to put us in for that reason alone. But we had all these opportunities. We didn't take advantage of them, end up getting left out. But to your point, playing the schedule like that can benefit you as long as you do what you need to do with it. We just didn't do it in baseball. Oklahoma will absolutely have that opportunity, and Florida for that matter. I mean, it's just a gauntlet for them. You want to run through some of yours before we talk about what how many teams we think can get into this thing?
No, I mean are all almost essentially the same as yours. Maybe one a game off, and nothing
Yeah.
that you said about the schedules um, made me think, oh, we should talk about that. Outside of Mississippi State, I think we should let's run through that. You said you got them at 6-6,
Okay.
right? And you were
Yeah.
proud of yourself. I talk why.
Well, I mean,
why are you proud of
I wouldn't say
yourself?
I'm proud.
Because you gave them 6
No,
wins.
I'm not proud of myself. I said I was
Surprised,
shocked to get them there.
Sorry, yeah.
Surprised, shocked. Definitely not proud though. That's for sure. No, if it were up to me, I would have them 0-12, 0-8, but I couldn't consciously do that.
I mean, you've got Arizona State. Who knows, right? You're going out there. Who knows what you're going to get with that team? But you got to think probably at worst 2-1 starting SEC play. They get Florida at home.
I've got them winning their first 4.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Then you drop 2.
Yeah, drop 3.
You get A&M. Really? Okay.
Yeah. I've got A&M beating them too.
Maybe. See, that's the game. That's one of those swing games for me.
That's a swing
for actually both of them. Actually, you got A&M going on the road, and
I think that the 2 games for Mississippi State to get to 6-6 is Florida at home, Texas A&M at home. You've got to take one of those, right? You can't lose both of them. I think State and Florida's closer to the same level than A&M and State are. I'm just going to take the better team with A&M to win, even though it's on the road.
Yeah, but I mean, State's schedule isn't terrible.
No, that's how I got them 6-6.
Yeah. But no, I mean, that was just so we could talk a little bit more about about the college football playoffs. Now, I don't necessarily have anything just outrageous. I mean, Vandy's going to not be good. I hope Arkansas, isn't good with the transfer of KJ Jefferson. Right, you got to imagine. They're probably going to be a mess. I think.
Well, him and Rocket Sanders both. Rocket Sanders going to South Carolina now.
Yeah. Well, so I think that the most interesting things about it is Ole Miss. Right. We don't know what we're getting. We're big Ole Miss fans. We're hoping. Is it our Ole Miss fandom that's putting them at 11-1 and only losing 1 game, or is it they have the team that can fill it, put it out there? I think it's a bit of both, probably. I'm with you. I think LSU is going to be good. I think Brian Kelly is going to be a problem in the SEC for as long as he's here. I think Missouri is going to be interesting. I think they could be 10-2, right, or they could be down in that 6-6, 7-5 range.
7-5,
yeah. I've got them in the middle of that, right? I've got them at 8-4.
Okay.
A&M. I'm not as optimistic on A&M. I've got them right there with Missouri at 8-4. But everybody else was pretty much right on. Kentucky, I don't know anything about Kentucky, so I didn't even try.
It's just going to be the same thing with them over there. They're going to be fine. They're going to win 7, maybe 8 games. They're going to be a pain in your ass every time you play them. I mean, that's just what Kentucky's going to be. So, all right. So moving on to the college football playoff talk. This year, obviously being the first year of the 12-team college football playoff, seeds 1 through 4 are going to be the 4 highest ranked conference champions: SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC. So whoever wins those conferences, determining how the college football playoff committee ranks them, that's going to be your 1 through 4 seed. And then basically 5 through 11 are going to be Power 5 at-large teams. And then the last team to get in is going to be your highest ranked group of 5 team. So you're really looking at, 7 at-larges from.
You could get 8 teams from the SEC could get in. 8, technically. Right, with the conference champion and the 7 at-larges. Yeah.
And then the 7 at-large, So the way mine is set up, looking at the schedules and all, like I said, I know it's not going to go that way. I think you're looking at the SEC I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if a total of 5 teams got in there. If you had the SEC champion, and then you got 4 at-larges, 4 of the 7 at-large bids, right?
I think
Because you got to think there's probably not going to be a Big 12 at large. From what I saw this past year of Florida State, I would be surprised if they gave an ACC at large. So you're basically splitting the 7 at larges between the SEC and the Big 10, and I'll give the nod to the SEC getting 4 and the Big 10 getting the other 3.
Yeah, and I mean, I think 4 is a incredibly like pessimistic number for some reason, but it sounds about right. But you got to think, Georgia is probably the winning the conference if we're going by the favorite, and then you've got 3 teams there: Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama. Who, I mean, you've got to think with Alabama's what they've done over the past few years, right? And the way that they just reload. The Nick Saban retires, but then you just reload with another coach, and then Milrose back, and all of this stuff. So you've got to think that Alabama has a pretty good shot of making it. And then you look at Ole Miss and Texas, 2 teams that have been in Texas last year, actually making it in. But the prior year, just kind of being there, and then Ole Miss the past couple of years, just almost there, kind of building our way up. And so you've got the past or our past couple of years of history, and then what we've done in the transfer portal. You got to think, those 2 teams are going to be in there, and so that's 4 right there.
Yeah,
and then we talked about A&M. I mean, they could go 10-2. LSU, Missouri was right there last year, as well. And what if Oklahoma comes in and just surprises everybody and runs the table and goes 10-2? I think you could have. I hate this, right? I love it because I'm a fan of the SEC, and it's been my whole life has been SEC country. But I also almost hate this because you could very easily see 8 SEC teams in the college football playoff, and I don't know that that's great. I don't know that that's great for the game, but it just goes to show that the SEC is where the football is.
They are that dominant. There's no doubt about it. I don't think you're going to see quite that many.
No,
I understand your
I don't think so
point
either.
I think 5 is probably the max. I think the committee will cut themselves off at 5, right? And then they'll start, picking through the Big 10. And if for some reason the top level of the Big 10 has a down year, they'll start, plucking through the Big 12 or the ACC if they can get Clemson or Florida State, whoever didn't win the conference there, just to make sure that they see SEC didn't get more than 5. But I think 5 is a realistic number. Get 4 at larges plus your conference champion in there.
Who's the 5th one?
I think
who's the 5th one? LSU.
All right, so
Missouri.
You got Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama. I think those 4 are pretty safely in. If you
I think we agree on that.
If you made me pick the 5th one, probably Missouri. I think. Let me look one more time just to make sure. Yeah, I've got them losing at A&M, at Alabama, and then after that, all right. So theirs is going to come down to a couple of late road games. So after they go to Alabama, they have an open date, and then they come home and play Oklahoma. I have Missouri beating Oklahoma at home, but then they turn around the next 2 weeks back to back. They hit the road and go to Columbia, South Carolina, and Starkville, Mississippi. Those aren't going to be easy. I mean, it's the 2 places we've talked about that's hard to go to and play, especially after such a high that it's going to be for them to beat Oklahoma at home in their first year in the SEC. And at that point, they're really rolling and having pressure of making the playoffs at that point. So I think those are going to be the 2 games. I do have them winning both of them. But, yeah, I mean, that's I think if you made me pick a 5th one, it would be Missouri, and then I would go LSU after that. I've got LSU actually losing 2 home games. Now that I look at it, losing against Ole Miss at home and against Alabama at home. Yeah, that's going to be tough too because they don't lose at home just a whole lot. But those are 2 elite teams. So yeah, I'll give Missouri the edge for the 15, followed by LSU, and then A&M and Tennessee after that.
Yeah, I think there's 3 teams. It's LSU, Missouri, and Tennessee. I'm actually going to go with Tennessee. I didn't realize that when we started talking about it, but I was looking at their schedule, and I mean, man, they've got a stretch in October and early November where they've got 4 straight games at home: Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and then they go on the road to Georgia, right? So, I mean, I think Tennessee goes minimum 10-2 and probably gets in there over LSU and Missouri, and the kind of what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, I actually had them 9-3. Now that could easily move to 10-2. I had them dropping the game in Norman against Oklahoma on the road. That's Oklahoma's first SEC game. I thought they'd probably be a little more juiced up for it. So I gave Oklahoma the edge there. Wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee went there and beat them though, and then moved on to 10-2. Then that's just again to our point with this conversation. That's how many teams can be in the conversation of this 12-team playoff.
But see, here's my thing against LSU, and they do this every year. Is you want to schedule a big game as your first game, right? Like at USC, I don't know anything about USC. They may be terrible this year. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like that's a losable game for LSU, and it's not in the SEC. Now that goes back to you wanting to pad your resume and get wins against good quality teams. And, I get that. But I think in this case, and this year, LSU playing the University of South California, I almost say Carolina.
There you go.
The other USC out there on the West Coast, I think that does them a disservice because if they start out, 0-1 like they did against Florida State, they're not making it, right? That if you lose that first game, you're not making it. Same thing we said about A&M. If they don't beat Notre Dame, like they're not making it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I not discounted LSU, but I kind of said, okay, well, I think Tennessee has the edge over LSU here because they're not playing out of conference USC.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up the college football playoff talk right there. We'll get into our final segment before we wrap this show up. Off the rails. This is where me and Hitch do something not Ole Miss related most of the time. We decided today that we are going to touch on the Caitlin Clark stuff. Neither one of us are huge women's basketball fans. Hitch watches more of it than I do, but I do enjoy watching Caitlin. I was tuned in pretty hardcore during the NCAA tournament last year when she was playing. She's a lot of fun to watch. The big thing coming out this past week was her not making the Olympic team, right? Me personally, I don't have a problem with her not making the Olympic team. Now, if she did make the Olympic team, she should make it based off of all the exposure she would bring to the sport. There's going to be more eyeballs, if she travels with Team USA. That part I understand. I also understand the fact where you need to pay your dues a little bit. And look, and if Team USA had even the smallest chance of not winning the gold medal, then this would be a little bit different. That's not an option. They're going to win the gold with or without Caitlin. They're going to dominate these other teams in women's basketball. So taking the competitive part out of it, I don't have a problem with her being left off. I think she should have been on for all the reasons that I mentioned, but I'm fine with her being left off myself. What about you, Hitch?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% get that my anatomy disqualifies me from having too much of an opinion about women's basketball. But I do love watching it. And, we've talked about it many times. We've got a coach here in Oxford that, I hang on her every word on Twitter a lot of times. I love Coach Yo and her attitude and, what she does. for the community. Also, Coach O, I also know that you don't slap the floor when you play defense. Okay?
We don't know that yet, but I'm telling you, we're going to get her on here and we're going to settle this one day. Damn it!
But when I first the whole Caitlin Clark thing, when I saw it, it looked like veterans giving a rookie a hard time, and I thought in my mind, oh, I probably wouldn't do that because she's the face of the franchise. And then, to Coach O's credit, I started listening to what she was saying about it, and she said, no, this is that league. People, the problem is that she's put a lot of eyeballs on the league who's never watched the league before, and they don't understand how the league works. Like they don't understand that this happens, right? The veterans on the team are the ones who kind of put the rookies in their place, and nobody is above that. It doesn't matter if you played at Iowa and was the greatest, college basketball player to ever play. And then the big foul happened, the foul with Kennedy. And I thought, man, this is crazy. And so, again, go ahead.
At that point, if that happens to me, number one or both of us are getting kicked out of the game because I'm coming up and I'm defending myself. Now, her teammates need to do something for her as well. Yeah. They need to come to her defense there. And I have a problem with that. That's a big issue.
That's where I'm going with it. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm going with it is like I said, I'm not trying to say I know everything about women's basketball and they should do this, but I can tell you from a teammate standpoint that if that had been me laying on the floor and my teammates did not come to my defense at all, it would speak volumes and it would hurt my feelings, honestly. But
we would all hear about it.
Yeah, oh well, everybody would hear about it. Once I got out of my feelings, everybody would hear about it. We both know that. But the way I look at it, again, I'm going to tell myself, I was like, Angel Reese, she's the problem, right? This is it. And then I heard her say something and it clicked with me. And I thought, man, I'm such a male idiot here. I'm not even I'm thinking about this from my perspective, not anybody else's. And she said, I'm just as important, basically, is what she said. I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but she said, the reason that people are starting to watch women's basketball is just as much about me as it is Caitlin Clark. And she had a lot of people come out and go, well, no, maybe not. But if you think back to 2 years ago in that double NCAA tournament, I don't know that many people knew who Caitlin Clark was until Angel Reese looked her in the face and pointed at her finger to let her know, I've got it, right? That lit a fire under Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark sets the world ablaze, right? Everybody knows she is, but the reason that people know who she is because she's got a villain, right? She's got Angel Reese being the villain. You got Angel Reese being Larry Bird. You got Caitlin Clark being Magic Johnson.
Yeah, Magic.
Right? Yeah. The WNBA, whether they meant to or not, and I hope that they meant to because it was a genius move, have created a rivalry here, and I think that that's probably going to do more for the sport than Caitlin Clark being there selling out fever games, right? I think that the sport will grow not because of Caitlin Clark by herself, like not everybody, but a lot of people seem to think it will. I think it will grow because you're going to have a natural rivalry that's been going on for a few years now, and people are going to tune in. I watched it. Like I checked my phone. I checked my ESPN app. Look, I'm not the best, but every day at a certain point in the day, I think, I wonder if there's a good WNBA game on tonight. And I check my ESPN phone or app on my phone to see if there is one on. And if one is on, I'll set an alarm on my phone. I'll sit down and watch it. And I really enjoy it. But I think, like you said about the Olympic thing, I see both sides of it, man. My first thought was, maybe she doesn't deserve to be on there, right? Maybe there are 10 better players in the WNBA than her. I would be willing to bet that there are, right now. There are probably 10 or 12 better players in the NBA than her. But at the same time, if you're wanting to get focused on the game and want people to come out to the games, maybe she should have been on there. So all of that to say, women, I love your basketball sport. It is so much fun to watch. Please keep it growing, and good luck.
And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank Ole Miss After Dark residential feminist Hitch for joining me once again this week to prop up the sport of women's basketball. Nobody does it better than him. So, Hitch, I sure appreciate you coming on here, buddy. And like I said earlier, I think we're going to try to get something together for y'all. Maybe get y'all a College World Series show coming up here in just a couple days. Me and Hitch will start talking about that as soon as we end here. And I hope so, because it's going to be a lot of fun. It's one thing me and Hitch can rattle on about for a couple hours if we have to.
That's something I can actually talk intelligently on and not try to fill up 50 minutes shooting from the hip about, stuff that I know about, right? Like I said, the eye test, I can look at it, but football gets me, man. We got to get Chad back. As much as I hate it, we got to get him back.
No, Chad's absolutely coming back, and you're going to get better at football. I am too. The one thing about me and you that's so different from everybody else is we get so entrenched in baseball during baseball season, while everybody else is still following all of the comings and goings of the off season of football. We don't do that. Okay.
I want to talk. I want to talk about every pitch. I want to talk about every pitch of every at bat. I do.
I can't even remember if I'd mentioned it on Dids in the Dugout. After that first Hawaii game, I have a sheet of paper that logs every single at bat and batter faced of that. Yeah. What was it? 14, 15, 16 inning game, whatever the hell that was. Yes, I have every single at bat logged in a notebook somewhere. So me and Hitch, we can go deep into some baseball, but we're going to catch up on football now. Really hope y'all enjoyed this version of our football show. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more coming as the summer goes along and football season finally gets here. We're really excited about, so appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all can find us on Spotify, Ole Miss After Dark on Spotify. If you are already following Dids in the Dugout, don't worry, it's the same thing. I just went in there and changed the name. So if you're following on Spotify, you still get Ole Miss After Dark from that same page. If you're not following on Spotify, go ahead and follow us there. Subscribe, like this video on YouTube. That'll help us out a ton. And if y'all have any questions, comments, things you want us to touch on, make sure to leave them in the comments below or get a hold of me and Hitch on Twitter. What do you got, Hitch?
The only other thing that I'm looking at now, right before we hop out of here, is that when Chad gets back, we start doing our gambling show. We're going to be, doing that. I want to throw out a quick futures bet here because I just saw it. Ole Miss is minus 122 to make the college football playoffs. Minus 122, jump on it, right? It's going to go up. Yeah. It's going to go up, I promise.
It is. Yeah.
I was surprised. I was surprised. I didn't expect it to be a plus, right? But I was very surprised that it was less than 200.
Yeah. It's a very favorable schedule. Something else me and Hitch will be going over on this summer. So y'all keep tuning in every single week. Keep your eyes out. Follow us on Twitter. It's as soon as we confirm, we'll have a show later this week with college baseball. If you're interested in that, we will let y'all know about it. But we'll go ahead and wrap up there. Hitch, appreciate it. And we will talk to you probably here in just a couple of days.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.
All right, bud.